Alright friends, welcome back to this lecture. I'm going to delete this abomination, so I'm going to select everything, press on X and delete. And now I'm going to create a new cube, Shift A, Mesh, and then create a cube. And I'm going to show you more advanced ways on how to move the cube and how to change different properties and all that stuff. So let's say I want to duplicate my cube. I can press on Alt-D, like we learned in the previous lecture, and then move it from here. I'm going to select this cube again, press on Alt-D, and then move it here. Right. Now let's say we want to rotate all of these objects at the same time. I'm going to move them closer, like here. So if you remember, if you want to select all objects, I can press on A and select all of them together. Now, if I press on R, you can see they're going to rotate like on the average middle point of all of those cubes. So this is called a median point. So these cubes are going to rotate around the median point, which is going to be like somewhere over here. So if I rotate, it's going to be rotated around the median point. But what if I want those cubes to rotate on their individual origins right here? So if I want them to rotate on the individual axes, what I can do is go ahead and go up here, click this, and then change this from median point to individual origins. And now if I press on R, they're going to rotate around their individual origins. This is a pretty useful tool if you're making animations, and you're going to be using that a lot in different scenarios. So I'm going to press on R, and then rotate them, and that's pretty easy. But what if I want to rotate them around this 3D cursor, right? This small cursor over here. I can go ahead again here, and then click on 3D cursor, and now it's going to rotate around the 3D cursor. So again, if I move them out of the way, if the 3D cursor is here, they're going to rotate around the 3D cursor over here. Now, another option I have is the active element. I also have this bounding box center, but I don't really use that much. So I can go ahead and select the active element. Is basically it's going to rotate around the active element, which is this one over here, this cube. Because if I select this cube, and then I shift select this cube, and then I shift select this cube last, it's going to have to. Now, what this means is that if other objects were selected previously, and if this object was selected last, it's going to have this bright outline. And whichever object has the brightest outline is the active element or the active object. Now, if I rotate the cubes, right? If I rotate these cubes, they're going to rotate around the active element, which means they're going to rotate around this cube's origin point. So again, if I press on R, as you can see, they're going to rotate around this. Now, if I shift and select this cube, now this cube is going to become active element. So again, I can press on R and then rotate it around here. Shift select this cube and then rotate around here. But what I mostly use is 3D cursor, median point, and then individual origins. So you don't really have to know the bounding box center and the active element that much. So I'm going to go back to the median point because that's what I use pretty much most of the time. Now, it's not only with the rotation, but you can go ahead and do this with the scale. So if I select this as an active element, enable the active element, right? It's going to scale around the active element. If I enable the 3D cursor, it's going to scale from here around the 3D cursor. So I'm going to select the 3D cursor and I'm going to scale them down. If I select the individual origins, they're going to be scaled by their individual origins right here. So I'm going to scale them up or down. So this is a pretty good way to know how to navigate it, and I recommend you to practice with them. Now, if it feels too overwhelming, then don't worry. You're going to get used to those if you start making your own projects and your own animations. Now, let's say I have this cube over here, and I want to move it exactly where this cube is. So pretty much on this origin point. Then what I can do is first move the cursor, because cursor is used to locate the objects pretty fast. So what I can do is select this cube and then press on Shift S and then click on cursor to selected. So now this cursor is going to be moved exactly where the origin point of this cube is. So now I can select this cube, for example, and then I can press on Shift S. And now instead of cursor to selected, I'm going to press on the top one, which is selection to cursor. Now it's going to move exactly where the cursor is. As you can see, I have this glitch over here, which is called Z-fighting. When you have two overlapping meshes, it's going to create the Z-fighting. So I can go ahead and move this out of the way. And again, if I want to, for example, move my cursor here and then move this cube here quickly, I can press on Shift S, selections cursor. Again, this one. Move this here, Shift S, selections cursor, and that's a pretty great way to navigate around your scene. Another important shortcut I want to show you is the numpad period. So if I'm over here and I'm rotating around here, I want to zoom in on my cube comfortably. But as you can see, I cannot really zoom in and rotate it around it because it's pretty uncomfortable. So what I can do is select an object and then press on numpad period. And now it's going to jump in the front of the object. And now if I try to rotate it, it's going to rotate around the object. But if I try to rotate around this cube, as you can see, I cannot really do that because Blender is now concentrated on this cube, right? So it's pretty hard. So now again, I can select this cube, press on numpad period, and then rotate around it. Now this is pretty useful, especially when I'm animating, when I select different characters' meshes or characters' bones. So let's say I have a cone here. So let's say this is a character's head, and I want to animate the character's head, right? I press on numpad period, rotate around it, and once I'm done, I select another part, click on numpad period, and then rotate around it. So this is a pretty useful navigation tool as well. Or I'm going to actually select all of the objects and press on numpad period so that I can frame select them, rotate around all of them at the same time. Now I went ahead and deleted everything else, and another advanced tool I want to show you is the snapping. So if I select the cube and move it on the x-axis, it moves like freely. But let's say I want to snap it on this grid, snap it on these little squares, which are part of the grid, right? So I can press on G, X, and then click on Control. And now it's going to snap on different squares right here, and it's going to restrict the movement, which is also pretty useful in some cases. Now, alternatively, I can select this magnet tool, which is going to do the same thing pretty much. So I'm going to press on G, and then it's going to restrict the movement on the different grids. So G, X, move it on the side, G, Y, move it on the side again, and then G, Z, move it up and down. But if you have the magnet enabled, and if you press on G and then Control, it's going to do the default movement pretty much without any magnet enabled. So I usually like to keep this off and then use the Control shortcut, which basically does the same thing. So G, Control, and then move it like this. Alt G if you don't like where it is. And then if I click on magnet and if I click here, I'm going to open the entire Pandora's box. There's going to be different options. But again, you don't have to know all of them. Just remember the 80-20 rule. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know 20% of the things to do 80% of the time. So you can just enable this or keep this off and then press on G, Control, and then move the cube like you want.